Hello, my name is Teresita Blanco, your sister, and today we're reading Saturnastra Monkey King. This is chapter 14, part 1. Today she was feeling in a particularly helpful mood, and she had just ruined the lives of 5 humans who had used her to speak with a dead relative from the great beyond. And the head guy wanted to know where the Steve had buried the treasure, and she sent him to Nick in not so obvious dragon dance, and she came back to Abel with 13 demons. A bit moody, he said. That's a bit more than I bargained for. Ernute then said through the talking board, the more the merrier. If too many of them go crazy, they're going to be onto us, said Abel thoughtfully. Then just stuff more into one body, suggested Ernute, slightly annoyed. And in the end, Abel decided to make use of the 13 demons, and he set them in pairs except with the one that had 3 to take over a human body. And the chosen victims had a proclivity for evil, and he nodded suggestion. And as for demonic possession, evil is classified as the act of willingly doing harm to someone and not feeling guilty about it. And the world is filled of self-righteous douches who commit terrible acts in the name of the idea of justice, or so Abel fancied. And using this definition and other specifications, the demons possess 6 chosen humans, and being vice demons, they amplify their positive traits while diminishing their weakness. And overnight, they have become overzealous bastards that not even their superiors could stomach. And the possessment's new behavior actually brought to more the days of preparation. And without telling Abel, the invisible army have been building traps inside the forest and small and pit traps and other things leading within their territory. And parallel to this event, the treacherous nature of the Lusitania shores was taking care of the navy that was coming their way. And there was a reason why Abel lived on these islands, and during the midsummer, the island experienced its highest low and high tides, and many ships scraped against the cover grounds whenever the water level quickly dropped. And in 1 hour, the tide would return in a fury, and there was never enough time to do repairs before the sea returned. And this knowledge was not too well known since Lusitania never engaged in oceanic trade. Their navy was limited to 3 galleons and the 5 new iron ships that were only usable for 6 hours, with the exception of their flagship Rusalka. Even after time in exercising the ships, the 4 other ampules did not show any signs of improving. And on the meantime, Rusalka was quickly becoming a beast, water and weather permitting. So that Rusalka is only useful under specific weather conditions. Abel was at us as to how to best use her, or if her help was even necessary at all. And in the end, he stationed her in one of the cave's hot springs to serve as a guard for the iron mages. And for the battle, the iron mages had come up with an interesting idea, and the storehouses were located all over the forest. However, their key storehouses were on the ground, and that they could only be accessed via teleportation spell. And the items would get moved there whenever the humans tried to open a storehouse, and those that did manage to open them would be blown to bits by adding an extra consonant in the key spots to destabilize the summoning spell and words. And eventually Ada felt like informing Abel of all of these minor changes, and he did not complain nor praise him for their ingenious traps. And this entire business was shaping out to be quite the massacre. And even with everything, Carabina still outnumbered them to 1,000 to 1. Again, Seer suggested, "Maybe I can help in battle or whatever." "Nah, don't bother. I just don't want you to get injured because of me. And the humans are already used to your kind, and your presence will lose all of its shock battle and all of the well-named ballista balls that will be the end of you," said Abel. "I could just burn them," suggested Seer. Sighing, Abel said, "If you are bored, find yourself new cats, and I suggest you move the ones you already own further inland lest they get eaten by the humans," suggested Abel. "Surely you're jesting," said Seer, laughing. "Remember that Seer is like the dragon. I like to be like, oh man, maybe I can help you fight the ones who are the invaders, and then I don't need your help, dragon person."
See, now I have a question. Are the 12 eldermen getting Lamin level?
Well, except for one.
Except for Ahi. Got it.
Yeah. Cause they're infiltration types, you know.
Oh yeah,
it's too obviously Superman level. Then they'd be like, this person doesn't belong to this person. It's
Yeah,
an
this
alien.
person that can slaughter an army with a single hit doesn't belong here.
Yeah, it's like super dull that it's an alien. Alright, not really. Humans have been known to eat cats when pressed by hunger, said Abel, chuckling. Is there a funeral, said Seer, leaving the tower to move all of his feline friends to safety. So that the dragon will move away. Humans eat cats, I gotta put them my cat.
By the way, this thing was written 5 years before the Hispanic cat thing. Like,
and I'm Hispanic, so...
Yeah, like this was written like 5-6 years ago.
Yeah. Whatever. So when along the way other animals started reminding Seer of his cats, and he started patiently relocating whatever large animal he saw further into the continent away from the battlefield. And from outside the forest, the dragon saw the comings and goings of this particular dragon, and not quite seeing or understanding what he was up to, and the day finally came and Carabina's troops entered the forest. And the tribes had barely slowed them down, just hindering the poor frontline infantry scouts that were sent ahead to trip the traps, and traveling with the night was a large pack of hunting dogs. And since this was not a traditional enemy, Carabina had the brilliant idea of hunting the nagas in the same way one would hunt any other type of animal. And hunting was a popular game among the nobles and knights, so they were familiar with the drill. At the final gambit, Abel decided to try the good old sleep deprivation trick, and taking Hyperion under his wing, he came to the camp and had Hyperion emit his super annoying wind harp sound. And using one of the underground cave networks, Abel made his way towards the cave with the most structured resonance, and it laid in relatively close proximity to the enemy camp while being miles away from the northernmost caves. And from there he placed Hyperion in one of the underwater rivers, and Hyperion emitted a strange sound showing his surprise at the heat of the rushing of the currents. And it was a slow-moving river, so even if he dropped Hyperion, he could still fetch it. And just to be safe, Abel tied the ampule to his person, and Hyperion then started making his bizarre tune that mimicked the sound of an air harp. You should Google it. It sounds like weird. An air harp. Carabina had heard the sound of it before and was not too surprised by these tactics, and he had assessed the possibility of such a ploy and had taken matters to address the issue. And taking watch, he placed it over his ears in an effort to drown out the sound, and he saw the soldiers did the same, and the muffling sound was eventually put on hold after a couple of hours, and some of the brave nagas from the Invisible Army had attempted light skirmishes, and they had injured a few scouts by biting and stabbing them, and not being able to hear the warning caused the hunting dogs had lost their usefulness, and in the end Carabina's army had to reluctantly keep their ears pierced to listen for any danger, while tolerating that inhumane sound. And this tactic did not last long, in part because both Hyperion and Abel had overheated in those thermal waters. And in mimicry of human language, Hyperion finally said, Preku otoro oyo peku sepesik. And Hyperion continued his nonsensical chatter while Abel took him out of the cave. Ateko saka koteso koteko, said Hyperion. Really, said Abel, sighing. Ate creo agora six todos yo, responded Hyperion. I can't believe it, said Abel, chuckling. Seco cierto pills, ciertos, added Hyperion, somewhat deflated. Oh my God, exclaimed Abel, ending the conversation. Hyperion was quiet the rest of his trip back, and he seemed to Abel genuinely disappointed at his failure to communicate with him. He was still a long way from making himself intelligible to other creatures that were not like him, and it made Abel wonder if the ampules could speak to one another, and they were certainly coordinated during battle exercises, and when left to their own devices. He said, do they even speak with each other? And this, why were you laughing?
That I know what really I can't believe it. Oh my God, came.
Oh yeah. That's where the line that they told my mother when she got like here in order to pretend to speak English. And it took a while for like folks to realize that she was sure that she only knew those three lines very early when we got here and stuff.
So like all our conversation when somebody said anything, they would say really, and then afterward they would say I can't believe it, and then the third time, oh my God, and then you just look between those three words.
Looping between those two words, and then you will give the person the illusion that you understand the conversation. These ruminations on the ampules were swiftly overshadowed by the worries of the world that surrounded Abel, and for the time being, dealing with the enemy was the prime concern. And if he had just another month, the main force could rendezvous with the reserves and actually repel them. And such a convenient scenario was at best not entertained, and he had to deal with the problem at hand. And the day before the start of the operation, Abel was in a dour mood, and normally he liked to overwhelm his opponent with sheer number. However, Pierre's little mercenary business had his forces fighting other people's battle. Till they returned, they had to do guerrilla warfare. And in order to make it work just right, he had to do something about the bloodhounds scurrying around in the forest. And while meditating on the matter, he decided the best way to deal with the problem was to give them a fast-acting poison. And the issue with his plan was getting close enough to poison the mutts. And just getting within striking range was enough to make the dogs paranoid. And how best to solve this matter was left to the individual naggers, and some came out with the idea of leaving Lando scraps of meat stuffed in apple seeds and raisins coated with lemon oil, and the tainted scraps were spread around the camp and in the areas leading towards the forest interior. These and other methods were not too promising as far as Abel was concerned. Still, their best luck was to rely in the strangeness of their forest. And Lusitania's forest had more than just wolves to contend with. And on his last restful day in the tower, Abel kept tossing and turning in bed, and Garganta was perched outside in the balcony, sleeping soundly. And getting up, Abel looked out the window towards the ocean, and he looked down and was shocked to see that the mysterious bush was gone, and Nico had just gotten up and walked away for he knew. And he saw from the balcony that Hyperion was sitting in one of the rocking chairs, and he went downstairs to pick out the thing and take him back inside. And he asked Hyperion, "Did you see where my little tree went?" "Paiso goter aleta," answered Hyperion. "I fear you have been spending a little too much time speaking with my brother," commented Abel, petting Hyperion, and he added, "You were at least agreeable company back when you used to communicate with pleasant sounds." And Hyperion grew quiet for the rest of the trip back to the tower. And then Abel added, "Sorry about that. I'm just a little worried about the invaders or so." And Hyperion answered with a low-pitched murmur. And by this point, Abel had finally come to understand that Hyperion liked the concept of pleasant sounds. For him, in the end, it did not matter much, seeing as though he was not going to be much use in the coming battles. And the night rolled by with its calm, lazy stillness, and even the ocean seemed to be asleep. And the wind too died, and the leaves grew still as death, and the silent moment only lasted a few minutes. And with its departure, life returned to the island of Ruidiobus.
You wrote it.
Time.
11 minutes.
Going back to his room, he found another one of his little orb gifts, and this orb did not have any particular powers, though it was a perfect medium for inscriptions. And he tried to focus into its interior, but his mind wandered. And a warm breeze entered his study, and he coughed lightly. And yawning, he brought out a piece of paper, and he started scribbling artsy-looking words, and they were followed by crude randomness of plants and trees, and he combined the drawings with the text, arranged it to something that resembled a poem, and stopping, he was reminded of a bit of the gibberish sounds created by Hyperion, and seeing the sunrise, he was forced to abandon this new music, and it was the start of a hard day's labor. And the first 2 days in the forest, the soldiers were having a merry time, and it was like hunting in a new environment, and they made light of being in an actual war. And whenever they encountered a naga, the skirmish only lasted a couple of minutes, and the nagas limited themselves to inflicting minor wounds before fleeing into the depths of the forest. And after the second day, the eagle of the night was somewhat deflated, and keeping up with the nagas in a dense jungle was proving to be quite a challenge. And the dogs were not used to this area either, and they barked at every little thing. And one afternoon, Carabina was informed by Hexin of a dense number of nagas hiding in the underground cave. And the hole was just beneath her feet, and after removing the roots of a tree, Carabina was surprised by the gaping darkness. And passing a torch, she found as he noted the small gaps between the rocks, and after surveying his troops, he picked out out of the team skin infantryman wearing leather armor. And looking at the hole, one of the generals suggested, "Can we just smoke them out?" "If you think it'll help, my liege," said one of the scouts without much enthusiasm, and before sending the party in, one of the men entered and made a small fireplace inside one of the holes, and with a fan he started sending smoke into the cave, and soon the ground below them had smoke coming out of hundreds of different cavities. Hexin then told Carabina, "It doesn't seem to be working." "I can see that," said Carabina flatly. "Where exactly can they be found?" "Right under us, just 2 meters down," said Hexin. Then why is the smoke not working? Asked Carabina, frowning. Helsing brushed her shoulders, unable to provide a proper answer, and the ground and the forest itself seemed to be messing with her godlike with her divine powers. And since she only had an influence over her followers, her omnipresence was rather limited. And in the end, the search party squeezed through the cave, and much to their annoyance, there was still plenty of smoke inside, and the torch provided very little light. And feeling the ground, one of the men felt cold, icy water, and after taking another step, he was head deep inside the frozen pool, and his leather armor and weapons weighed him down, and it was a good thing his companions were there to drag him out. And the embers of one of the torches illuminated a small shape beneath the waters, and a small head peeked out with glowing green eyes, and it then submerged by swimming through one of the numerous cracks under the rocks. And the hunting party returned, and the head of them said, "Flushing them is not a viable option, and there is underground water, and we cannot seem to find our way around such narrow passages." Helsing was a bit pensive all the while, and the campaign was quickly becoming a war of attrition, and the Nagas had the advantage over them in this regard, and night quickly fell in the tropical forest of Lusitania. And even before sunset, the forest was almost pitch black, and around them they heard the hooting of the animals, and one of the generals visited Carabina in his tent, and the high priest had the look of a walking corpse, and the general said, "If we cannot eliminate the enemy, might I suggest we find their prime resource. By looting their minds, we can force their hand." Looking at Carabina said reluctantly, "I suppose there's no other choice, and our people will starve if we cannot deliver, and our priority should be to raid their minds, seeing as though the storehouse are unavailable." Time, bro?
7 minutes.
Using a crude map of the area, Helsing saw the location of the cave with the highest concentration of precious stones, and it was only a 2 days journey from the location, and even take into consideration their current snail-like pace. And again she tried to focus more on Lusitania, but something seemed to be suppressing her powers, and she suspected that the deeper they entered the forest, the less help she could provide her prophet Carabina. And in the end, she decided to go with prudence, and instead of guiding Carabina to the northernmost cave in Lusitania, she led them towards the river. And one of the banks was home to several types of jaspers, like obsidians, orbicularis, bloodstones, and jasper browns. And after setting up camp, the infantrymen went towards the river and started messing out their banks with their little mining operation. And pity that even this small effort was fruitless, and Theobald's raiders were now at the footsteps of Lusitania, and these early cars of jasper were too intercepting. And Helsing kept failing to see Theobald's faction, and it seemed to her that she had lost sight of whatever was happening in the territory of Kandra. And after the second day of mining, Helsing came to Carabina and said, "I am blind." "What do you mean you are blind?" asked Carabina, genuinely surprised. "And how dare you speak to me in such a fashion?" said Helsing, fading away. And Carabina then performed an apology ritual involving flagellations with an iron-tipped whip. And after seeing him bleed for a couple of hours, Helsing finally felt like manifesting again, and she said, flatly, "I am blind. For some reasons I cannot see much of what occurs in Lusitania. And there are certain events occurring in Kandra that keeps my attention divided." "My goddess, what is happening to my country?" asked Carabina, bowing. "Nothing. Everything is the same as you left it, which is odd because the first batch of supplies should have arrived by then," said Helsing. "The Nagas, no doubt. And they are returning, and they wish to flank us," said Carabina. "No, they are still spread out, and that is a certainty. And why I cannot see certain events is a mystery," said Helsing, quite perplexed. "And she should have powers within and around the Kanda territory, and the lack of foresight was not a good sign. Her influence was waning." Time, bro?
4 minutes, 30 seconds.
The mining operations progressed slowly, and the nights were always in a dour mood because of the lack of comfort. And it rained most of the days, and when the weather was lovely, the nights got attacked by wild animals every so often. And the first of the lot they had to contend with were the flying snakes. And moving further upstream, Carabina and his troops discovered what seemed to be a deposit of ametrine. And they were all neatly resting in the riverside, and before getting a chance of taking all of those neatly placed stones, a young alabaster dragon came and stoically sat down on the pile of stones, and he drank from the river and coolly regarded the humans. And Carabina knew that there were alabaster dragons in the forest, and it was a pity that Helsing had failed to warn him of one of his presence. And with hindsight, he would have been able to make a trap for the dragon. Unlike all of the other dragons of his kind, this young male dragon seemed devoid of any aggressive spirit, and he simply fell asleep on top of his pile of ametrine. And a few brave soldiers were closer to the dragon, and they even took a few rocks to see what would happen. And since the dragon was not waking up, they decided to carry as much in their person as it could be before returning upstream. So then they were like, oh, look at all of those fancy precious stones. Oh wait, a dragon sat on top of it. Oh, okay. Why didn't they? I knew that there were dragons, but why didn't they tell us there was a dragon right over there? Time, bro?
3 minutes, 30 seconds.
All sentient beings marched forward whenever there was an army in the territory, or they fled. And this wait-and-see strategy of the Nagas was slowly ebbing away at their morale, and Abel had forbidden the Nagas from engaging in any real combat until backup arrived. And the dragons were free to do whatever they wished, but this particular dragon was not in the mood in engaging in battle. He just wanted to continue with his life, even if there was an army roaming his territory. And since the Nagas were the real target, the knights decided to ignore the dragon for now, since they fancied that they would incur a lot of casualties annoying the beast. As soon as they left, the alabaster dragon set up and yawned. He was done pretending to be asleep. And he said towards the shadows, "You better get those fools out of here before he wakes up." "We still have another man," said Abel's voice. And since they were sticking to the river route, the army ran into ended up in jaguar territory. And these hunters had a number of canine units whose number was down to 20, and the infantry too were mauled by the jaguars on numerous occasions. And all the while, the Nagas get suddenly stuck in the army, and the skirmishes had stopped at a certain point, and Carabina could not understand this behavior. And a week before the awakening, a strange creature was making mincemeat of the army, and after laying many traps, they were all happy to discover that they had captured a squirrel monkey Naga dressed in golden robes, and he had a small staff in his hand. After parading him in camp, the knights first started saying in all directions, we have captured your leader. Come out of hiding and surrender lest we kill him." Time, bro?
Minute, 30 seconds.
Silence answered, and the forest grew still, and the squirrel monkey, who resembled Abel, opened his mouth to speak, but no intelligible sound came out. And after this news spread to the barracks, Carabina came to verify the identity of the so-called captured monkey king. And looking at the small, frightened cage creature, he commented, "I think you captured a decoy." "And why isn't a decoy at all? It is not as if we're having any luck looking in the rest of the monkeys," commented Hexy. And keeping in a cage, Carabina was literally possessed by an interesting idea. And it was common in certain human towns to do nothing to burn live animals and cats for entertainment, and they were placed in baskets and tortured to hear the screaming agonies, and Carabina neither charitized nor restricted such practices. And to raise morale, he said, "We should